Alright guys, let me cut to the chase. Now 3 months ago I looked like this. And then over the next 2.5 months I gained 2 pounds a week, almost a kilo a week until I looked like this. I made myself fat. Now you might wonder what the hell happened? How could I gain weight so quickly? Do I have a thyroid problem? Was I eating like a sumo wrestler? No. In fact, I was eating 3 healthy meals still. I was exercising 4 times a week, lifting very heavy weights in the gym, and I was walking 15,000 steps a day. But on top of that, I deliberately took out some of the healthy stuff I was eating and I replaced it with 1,000 calories of Pringles. Say 2 of these Kit Kat Chunkies along with the Pringles will be 1,000 calories, or a plate of, say, these baked goods with the hot dogs, small almond croissant, and a little piece of bread, that would be 1,000 calories. And that was enough to cause me to get massive weight gain of 2 pounds a week. Now I follow a lot of gym and bodybuilding forums, and a lot of the people there will swear by calorie counting. And I did this experiment on purpose to prove that calorie counting is not accurate, because my caloric surplus would not justify me gaining 2 pounds a week, all right? Now, I got this idea because last year I was obese and super unhealthy, and then I ate the carnivore diet for a month and lost 8 kilograms in the first 24 days, all right? Now, my body can hold 3 kilograms of water, which is attached to my glycogen, but I lost over 5 kilograms of body fat. In fact, I even put on a little bit of muscle. And it, you know, people will say, well, I must have been running a big caloric deficit. No, actually not. I was eating a lot of meat and eggs, barely running a caloric deficit, and my weight just dumped, all right? It was like I wasn't even eating, but I was eating and I wasn't losing muscle. And it made me realize that caloric counting is only accurate when somebody is already healthy and in a constant hormonal state. Now let me explain this. For example, first of all, calories are measured by putting food in a little box and then burning it in water, and then measuring the temperature change. It does not take into account the complex processes in your body when it metabolizes that food, such as the thousands of enzymes and hormones working via tens of thousands of metabolic pathways, some of which become more active under certain conditions, eating certain foods, and some of them become inhibited and switch off under other conditions. So for example, if you don't sleep enough and if you are stressed out, then your cortisol level, which is a stress hormone, will become elevated. Now cortisol is the hormone produced when your body basically thinks it's in a fight or flight response, but it becomes very common these days because a lot of people get stressed out over work and life or whatever. But having elevated levels of cortisol all the time will put your body in a state where it feels that you are going to be under stress, and it'll want you to put on body fat to save it for a rainy day. So then you will find it very hard to lose the weight, even if you're running a caloric deficit. Now, I saw this 10 years ago firsthand when I was a personal trainer, and I had a client who was, according to the calorie calculators, running a caloric deficit, dieting and exercising, but the client could not lose weight because the client was working very, very hard, not sleeping enough, stressed out, and putting themselves in a very state of having a very high cortisol level. And another state that your body can be in, which will stop you from being able to lose weight and body fat, is being insulin resistant. A lot of people become insulin resistant these days eating these modern diets because there's way too much carbohydrates. So their blood glucose goes up, their insulin goes up to bring the glucose back down, to put the glucose into their cells and muscle cells and fat cells, which is normal. But if you do it repeatedly, getting insulin spikes repeatedly over a number of years, then your body will become resistant to its own insulin levels. Then when your blood glucose goes up, your body will produce more and more insulin to try and bring it down, but it can't because your body no longer responds to the insulin. So then you have chronically elevated insulin levels in your own blood. And you can test for this in your blood work by doing what is called a fasted insulin test. The problem with high insulin levels is that insulin blocks off the ability of the fat cells from metabolizing fat. So you can no longer burn your own fat, all right? Or put it another way, for people who still don't believe that calorie counting does not explain everything, both gasoline and diesel have energy stored in them. But if you put diesel in a gasoline engine, you'll mess up the gasoline engine. If you put gasoline in a diesel engine, you'll mess up the diesel engine, okay? And the human body is way more complex than the car engine, okay? This is just an analogy to explain, basically, it's not about just the amount of energy that is in the food. It depends on how efficiently your body is metabolizing the food and energy. Which brings me to the next point, the Randle cycle, all right? Now, most people know of the Krebs cycle, which is basically when the mitochondria produces ATP, and ATP is used, it's the basic energy unit used in our cells and to power our bodies. But almost nobody has heard of the Randle cycle. Now, I bet you 99.9% of people, including doctors and people who are into the gym and into nutrition science, do not know about the Randle cycle, all right? So that Randle cycle is basically your cells can only metabolize either fats or glucose at one time, okay? If your body is metabolizing fats, then it will shut out the glucose, all right? And if your body is metabolizing carbs, glucose, then it will shut out the fats. The problem with the modern day diet, such as fast food and processed foods, is that it is very high in fats and carbohydrates. So then your body, your cells are going into hyperdrive, locking out the carbs and locking out the fats and producing a huge amount of inflammation, all right? And also when you're locking out the fats, that's when you get elevated triglyceride levels, which over time will cause you cardiovascular disease, and you can test that in your blood work as well. Or the high level of fats is locking out the glucose, and then you keep having high elevated levels of glucose, which also happens from the insulin resistance, and then you will have a high HbA1c. Now, anything above 5.7 on your HbA1c will make you a pre-diabetic. And HbA1c is basically the amount of glucose which is now attached to your red blood cells, because the glucose is in the blood, but it can't come out of the blood, so it gets stuck to your red blood cells. And over time, you will become a diabetic as a result of that, and that will clog up your capillaries, which is why diabetics will get tingling sensations in their fingers and feet, and they'll lose their vision because the capillaries are getting clogged up. So anyway, the Randle cycle explains why I was getting rapid weight gain, because I was eating a lot of fats and a lot of sugars. Okay, so my cells were going into hyperdrive and going to a state of flux and producing a huge amount of inflammation. Now, in this experiment, I've documented not only my weight, but also other stuff. For example, my skin quality. And also, I developed psoriasis, which went away before last year when I was doing the carnivore diet. But it came back again when I was eating sugars. And also there's seed oils in the processed foods. And also, my blood pressure went way higher, so I had high blood pressure. Now, I started the carnivore diet again 10 days ago, and in 10 days, I've lost 3.1 kilos. Some of that is water weight, but I lost 1.2 kilos of body fat and a slight amount of muscle, 0.1 kilograms of muscle. My skin quality got better, okay, because the inflammation went down. And a lot of people don't realize that their acne problems, their skin problems might be due to increased inflammation from their food. And my psoriasis went away after 6 days. And a lot of people do not know that their psoriasis, skin issues, or autoimmune issues are a result also of high inflammation, which they can fix by cutting out the carbohydrates in their diet. And also my blood pressure went down from high blood pressure to normal range again. It's still elevated compared to what it was last November when I was in very good shape. Last November it was around 110/60, which is like perfect. It shows like there's almost zero friction between my blood and my blood vessels. So basically, if you want to lose weight, you cannot stress your cells out by eating high fats and high glucose, high carbohydrates. You have to reduce one of those, which is why historically people lost weight either via a low-fat diet or low-carbohydrate diet. And the next video, I am going to explain why a low-carbohydrate diet is the healthiest way to lose weight. And it has to do a lot with basically the way we evolved to metabolize our food. It is not, we never ever were meant to eat a high carbohydrate load, okay, historically, as we evolved. We were always meant to eat meats, a lot of meats. We hunted as a species before the advent of farming, which only came around about 10 to 12,000 years ago. All right, so if you're interested in following my crazy body transformation, I'm telling you it's going to be crazy because over the next 60 days I'm going to lose a ton of weight. Then follow this channel and I'll explain to you the science and the processes behind this rapid weight loss. Another thing, I don't want people to take my word for granted. So I hope, as in all my videos, that people actually do some of their own research and Google some of the stuff that I've talked about. But I put in the description of this video another video done by Dr. Paul Mason, which explains how insulin resistance blocks off the ability to burn body fat. But I will strongly encourage you to Google the Randle cycle and learn how fat and carbohydrate metabolism works and how one pathway will block off another pathway. But if you're interested, you can post any questions in the comment section, and in another 10 days time I will do another update to show how much my body has changed.